A2IM, the collective voice of independent music.
Hello and welcome everyone to another Indiescussion. My name is Evan Plick. I'm the membership manager here at A2IM. We've got a really great session lineup for you today on evolving approaches to A&R with a really phenomenal cast of leading A&Rs in our community to discuss emerging philosophies, technologies, and techniques behind the artist discovery process in 2020. And before I hand it over, if you're viewing and not a current member of A2IM, but interested in learning more a little bit about what we do, how to get involved, you can reach myself and the rest of the membership team at membership@a2im.org, which I will also put in the chat. And with that, I'm now going to hand it over to our moderator, VP of North American A&R at Ninja-Tune, Maddy Salvage. So Maddy, take it away.
Hi everyone, how you doing? Really happy to be here today. My name is Maddy Salvage. If you don't know me, I'm VP A&R in North America for Ninja-Tune Records. We are a large, significant indie label to come out of the UK. I work with artists including Thundercat, Bonobo, Little Dragon, Odessa, Sampa the Great, Bicep, Park Hygiene, and Jada G, to name a few. Thank you so much, A2IM, for having me host. I'm very honoured as we have a fantastic lineup of guests today. A little bit about the panel, evolving approaches to A&R, discussion points. As we all know, the music industry has changed drastically in the last 6 months. In the absence of live, widely seen as an area integral to A&R strategies, scouting and artist development, A&Rs have had to adapt. This discussion should hopefully give us an insight into how A&Rs are rewriting the rules currently, how they're interpreting data, and how other newer technologies are becoming part of day-to-day life for us. So we want to start with some general questions. I'm going to introduce all the amazing panelists. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We're going to start with some questions from my end, and then we'll probably leave about 15 minutes at the end for any outside Q&As. So please, everybody join. I would love to have you all introduce yourself. Can we get, oh, here we are, amazing. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. I just want to go around and have everybody introduce themselves. If you could tell us your name, a bit about your role and your company, that would be wonderful. Let's start with Fotemah.
This always happens to me. I'm always called on for my name or something. But
you're first on the list, just in the grid. And it's the hat, I think, the prominent hat, you know.
I need to stop wearing this hat. I feel like I get picked on or something.
Actually, we've got 2 great hats today, so you've got a rival.
But my name is Fotemah, head of A&R at Cinq Music Group. Cinq is a rights management and distribution indie label, to keep it short.
Thank you. Briana?
Hi, my name is Briana, and I do A&R at 4AD. And at 4AD, I look after Velvet Negroni, TK Meza, and Erica DeCassier. And outside of doing A&R for 4AD, I run 4AD's digital imprint called B4, and the roster is pretty big there, but to name a few, I have Hawa, Asha Nuno, Tamaguchi, Andrea Valle, Jazz Ingram, and Sifted Blair.
Awesome. Let's go for Melanie.
Hi everyone, I'm Melanie Mclean. I'm a publishing A&R at Cinq Group. Cinq Group is a collection of 3 record labels, Jaguar, Dead Ocean, Cinq Canadian, as well as a distribution company that focus mostly on record labels, as well as the publishing and where I'm on. I'm the A&R there, and I work with artists like Namdi, Corbin Canvas, Kenneth Wallum, Hino, and Daryl Ron. And yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. And David, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm David Hernandez. I'm the CEO and founder at Colonize Media, and we're a content aggregator, and we work with some of the most incredible labels and artists in the Latin scene, and also EDM and other awesome genres. And yeah, that's that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, everybody. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. I think this is going to be a really exciting panel. It's obviously a strange and interesting time for the music industry in general, particularly with A&R. So yeah, I've got some questions. We're going to start fairly broad. I'd really like to go around and have answers from everybody on our first question. And it's going to be really focused on what A&R means to you guys now and how this has changed in a post-pandemic world. So who would like to start? Briana.
Well, there's like this ongoing joke that I like to tell people that A&R, and it's from a meme that I saw on the internet a long time ago, and it just stuck with me, and A&R stands for anxiety and regret. I've been feeling a lot of that, especially not being able to see my artists and like being out in general. But I guess that's like, you know, the darkest side of artists and repertoire. So right now, a lot of my job is checking in with my artists more regularly. And what has changed is that I've realized that the pressure of deadlines and release dates are not as important anymore. And what's really important is the state of the mental state of my artists. And that is something I hope to keep checking in on even after the pandemic and everything else that's happening in America right now.
For sure. I think, you know, having A&R is, you know, largely so much about personal interaction and forming those relationships. So obviously it is a challenging time, particularly when, you know, we have large roster of artists, which I imagine both David and Fotemah have in terms of like them being all over the world as well and not accessible to having this sort of physical interaction right now. Would you guys say that you've been struggling with that and it's something that you've been kind of trying to be mindful of and finding ways around?
Somebody, you can go first.
You guys are slick. No, yes, definitely. I'll answer the first question first. It's funny, when I first got into A&R, and I didn't know what the heck it was or what it meant, but I was already doing it. So when Akon hired me and said, "You're A&R," I was like, I don't want to be no darn A&R. What the heck is A&R? Until I went and did my research, and the first name that came up was Puff. I said, oh, I'll accept the job. But yeah, navigating the pandemic right now has definitely been challenging. I'm a person that loves to travel. I'm a person that loves to feel the talent, hear, just get their energy, because talent also goes beyond the music when you want to sign a talent. I like to really get into the personality of that talent, because as we know, when it comes to the regret part, as she was saying, you sign an artist, then 2-3 months down the road, it's like, the headache start kicking in. So, you know, with the pandemic and everything, that's completely eliminated that. So it's like, okay, I'm moving blind right now. So yes, it's definitely been, I would say challenging, but yet has its opportunities as well. Yeah.
I would second that. I love to travel as well, and I'm constantly, pre-pandemic, I was constantly traveling pretty much every month, meeting with our labels, the artists, looking at what songs were gonna be recorded, you know, getting a real feel for the artists, going hanging out with them, checking out their shows, going to the studio, because a lot of what we do, yeah, we live in a digital world, but we are pushing feelings. That's our business.
Exactly.
You know, feeling feelings and being able to transmit them out there. So I've been doing Skype things and Google Hangout things since like 2005, 2006. Like I remember the very first time I did a Skype thing, I was just Skyping random people throughout the world, and that was so cool to me. But there's nothing like that face-to-face, that in-person feel, because you can really feel the people and they can really feel you. And artists are all about feeling. That's why they're artists. So that's something that kind of, it's been a little hard. But on the other end, I'm at the office a lot more, and we're focusing a lot on product. We're talking to all of our existing labels, clients. We've been able to create a couple hits here and there. You know, we're focusing on emerging markets. We've done some really cool stuff, and yeah, you know, that's sort of the thing.
And David, just in case anybody out there doesn't know, in terms of the structure of your company, so there's quite a lot of strings to your bow, is that correct? In terms of, you know, you're a distributor, but also A&R, there's other elements. Would you mind just quickly filling us in?
Yeah, so, you know, we're a distributor. We also handle some really incredible labels, and we work we're a very integral part of the majority of our clients' infrastructure and the way they run. And yeah, you know, we kind of have 1,000 hats here. So, but 1,000 hats with a big focus on, we know exactly what we're doing and where we're going. So, yeah.
Speaking of hats, Melanie, would love to hear from you as well on this.
No, yeah, it's been really interesting just because I joined Secretly a little over a year ago. So the majority of my time working with artists at Secretly, I've been in the pandemic. So I started August 2019. I signed my first artist, I think, the very beginning of this year. And then the 4 other artists, I like finished the deals that all happened during the pandemic. And thankfully, like, some of them I got to meet before the deal was done, but like I've signed artists that I've, you know, never met in person, you know, and I think that's like a very, very interesting thing. But like at the same time, like I was saying on Twitter earlier today, I literally signed an artist that like I connected to in the chat of a Zoom's panel. Like I wasn't on the panel, we were both in the chat, and we like went from like the chat to the DMs to like getting to know each other, talking on the phone, another Zoom, and then, you know, signing a deal. So it's been really interesting because I feel like I feel like a Zoomer per se, because like my whole process as an A&R, most of it has happened via Zoom, from like sessions. Like every session I've done on this job has been via Zoom. Like the majority of artists I've signed have been Zoom. So like I feel like I'm gonna try as much as possible when things become our new normal to take the good parts of this experience and carry that over, just because like I'm building better relationships internationally than I probably would have done before, just because there's not the limitation of like, you know, time of day, or we're just thinking more globally than before. So there's been a lot of downsides of like the pandemic, but at the same time, like I'm really been trying to think of the positive sides, because like everything, the majority of what I've done has happened during this time, you know.
For sure. I wanted to just ask from a publishing standpoint as well, with, you know, you mentioned Zoom sessions, right, with your artists. How have you found that? I think, you know, it's definitely been an interesting path for artists who are used to getting in sessions in rooms with people, now going on to kind of virtual Zooms, and it doesn't feel like it's for everyone, you know. Have you found a lot of your artists are open to it, or is it something that you've had to encourage them to do, or how's that experience been for you?
I mean, I guess like that's another, like the upside of like when you meet someone in like April, right? Or May, it's kind of like, that's the only option. So like when you had that first conversation, like I don't work at a distribution company, I don't work at a label, I work in publishing. What are you trying to do? Do you know about Cinq? Do you know about co-writes? It's kind of like, this is the only option, unless it's saying, well, do you want to do a session next year, you know? So thankfully, all the artists that I work with have been really, really enthusiastic about it, and been really thinking outside the box and trying to figure out their own comfort zone. Like sometimes we'll do like an intro with another artist, and then it's kind of like you meet in person then, and then it's just kind of like emailing back and forth, you know. Other times it's like you have the camera set up for a couple hours, and like, you know, you're working on a song, you know, maybe the song needs a little help, maybe you're starting from scratch. So I think that's kind of the upside of it. It's like some of my artists that most of my artists are artists, like none of the artists I've signed are like songwriters or producers. They're all like self-produced, and they write from themselves, but like they're not like known as a producer. So sometimes it's their first time thinking like a co-writer. So it's kind of like my first time as an A&R in this type of role within the Zoom world, and it's the first time too. So I think it's a lot of us like learning together, which I really, really appreciate, and like their understanding, my understanding, you know.
I think this leads really nicely into my next question, actually, for everybody. Want to focus a little bit on new habits and responsibilities that have become, you know, part of our day-to-day life now. We're all having to adapt. Zoom sessions being a, you know, great example of that. Has, I think as well, you know, just touching on your guys' elements about it becoming more global A&R. I wanted to ask, you know, really, are there any kind of specific new habits that you found have really been accelerated during this time? I'll leave this open to whoever wants to answer it first.
On our end, we've done we have a tremendous focus on platform diversification, mainly, of course, because of the impact on revenue and also traffic, but also because there is a huge promise in the years to come in emerging markets, and also huge promise in like Central South America, Africa, Eastern Europe, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that before we were putting a lot of our energy into certain platforms. Now we're really just diversifying that, and yeah, looking for new avenues, new opportunities, and of course, speed, you know, of velocity of content creation, content marketing, velocity as far as the artists that we're working with. And again, a lot of these artists and a lot of new artists are just home. So there's a lot of content coming out. It's just a matter of getting really organized, planning it out, and marketing.
I guess on my artist side, I've been able to just watch all of them thrive during this time off and like learning new skills. And for example, like Marty the other day, she launched her entire merch line and she made the website on her own. And Andrea Valle did a whole photo shoot inside her apartment that it went to Notion for like, I think it was probably 4 pages of her. And then TK Meza, her music video for You Sad, that was all done by herself because she got herself a green screen, and now all the content she's just making on her own in her bedroom. And I think it's really inspiring to see that people are, you know, motivated, and like a lot of my other artists are starting to learn how to produce for themselves right now. And I'm just watching master classes on how to be better.
YouTube, the era of YouTube tutorials.
Yes.
How about you, Tima? Are there any sort of new habits that you've been noticing? How have you been adapting?
Well, apart from me eating a lot more snacks than usual.
Seen evidence of that with the waffles.
I've definitely, some things that I've gotten used to is when you take away the drive, the flight time, all the studio times, you find yourself in front of a screen almost 24/7, doing a lot of admin work, it seems like now. A lot more content delivery, like discovery, like David said, especially when it comes to emerging markets, you have a little more time now to really like dig into what's going on out there. And then also something else that I've gotten pretty used to is conflict resolution. With all the anxiety that's happening right now around COVID, and you know, a lot of the artists' incomes are being affected. You know, I'm finding myself having to like do a lot of, you know, get a lot of those calls. What's going on? Like, they have a lot more time to find out what's going on with their catalog now, and what you're doing or what you're not doing. So those are some of the habits that I'm starting to kind of like getting used to now: conflict resolution, artist discovery, and just spending a lot of time in front of this laptop. Yeah.
So just on that with artist discovery, Melanie, specifically on that, would you say your kind of the ways you're navigating scouting and artist discovery has changed, and you know how you've adapted to it being pretty much all online?
I feel like I've been able to do what I was already doing just more often, just because before working in this job, I was a playlist curator at DSP. I worked at YouTube Music. So that job was literally just artist discovery all day long. So, but I think like, for example, things that I wouldn't, maybe not able to do every day, every week, like listen to a radio show on the BBC One Extra that I had, like, I like find emerging artists, like I can try my best at playing that show every single Tuesday now. And maybe I wouldn't have done that every Tuesday if I was in the office, but I definitely feel like it's kind of like just me doing what I was already doing. It's just like, just kind of making it more of a routine. and really kind of like really setting up my own schedule based off of like my art discovery habits. And I think in a kind of a more leaned in function, as well as like I said, meeting people via Zoom. So like also thinking of very untraditional ways too, of not just saying, hey, I'm an A&R, but like I kind of have like a copy and paste spiel I send like every panel. I'm like, hi, I'm Melanie. I'm into like left of center world building musicians, examples like JPEG Mafia, Tierra Whack, FKA Twigs. Like I have that spiel, and like it's kind of those cases like I don't know any of these artists that she's naming. I'm not gonna hit her up, or like I'm just gonna hit her up even though I don't know any of these names. Or it's like, you know, the guy artist I signed, Hino, who was like, oh yeah, I actually worked with JPEG Mafia, and JPEG Mafia, we co-produced a song on my upcoming project. Here's a link. So I think it's a case of like just me doing what I've always was doing, but then also just thinking a little more creative ways that literally didn't exist prior to everything happening right now.
I'd love to get into this side of artist discovery a little more with some of you guys. So David, perhaps just on the more kind of scouting element, is that something that you're actively involved in? And if so, how are you navigating the monotony of the online world of discovery?
Yeah, I mean, TikTok, Triller, Facebook for like Central and South America, that's something that we're focused on, and that's where we're finding some really cool talent. But again, going back to what we spoke about earlier, we're finding talent, but then again, it's really crucial for us to get to know that talent or label or artist, because everything's incredible at the beginning, right? But you don't know what mindset they have. You don't know the mentality. And it's really awesome that there's a lot of content and new artists coming out. However, the reality of that this is a business needs to somehow be shown to them. And there's also processes and administration and things that go into that. So yeah, that's a little bit of that.
Briana, how about you? I know you're a big scouter and on things very early.
Well, I used to go on SoundCloud and search for like similar artists, or even the ones that like artists that I like, and seeing what they used to like the listening history. But that hasn't happened in a while, and it used to be going on blogs like Pigeons and Planes, but right now it just seems like anyone that's featured on the site is already signed to a major.
Caveat here, by the way, guys, you don't need to give up your deepest, darkest A&R secrets. I know they're very precious, so feel free to keep it broad.
This is also like years ago, so I haven't successfully found anyone on SoundCloud or Pigeons in maybe like 4 years. But now I guess I love the artists that I work with, and they always send me people that they like or their friends, and a lot of it is really just through people that I trust, and then being like, hey, you should listen to the single. And like on the B4 side, the label is very short-term based. So like I can easily sign someone to one track and then do like an EP or album afterwards, but it's all really based on if we mutually enjoy working together and not being tied down to a 5-album deal.
So would you say the way you're operating with artists within the label has changed as a result of the pandemic in terms of, you know, the deal structures and things, or is it just on a case-by-case basis?
It's on a case-by-case basis. I signed Erica DeCassier to 4AD, but I was taking meetings with her way before COVID happened, and that deal just ended up happening. And we did like a celebratory Zoom thing, but everything, I guess her deal is pretty traditional, but the ones on B4 is just, it's way more flexible there, and I try to make it as artist friendly as possible to whatever the artist wants.
For sure. In terms of the kind of factors when we are in the discovery kind of zone, I wanted to ask you guys what factors you know, you're really looking for now when viewing an artist's profile online, for example. I mean, we've all kind of spoken about how a lot of that is done online now. So I'm interested to kind of know out there for, you know, particularly to help kind of developing artists or maybe new management companies, if there's areas within like online profiles or social media that you feel are very important, or things that you would look for. So Tima, can we start with you on that?
I look for a lot of things. I think we're in a data-driven environment right now, so that's very important. But when it comes down to the bottom line after that data discovery is that gut instinct that you just know, like, okay, this mother's a star, you know? So but it's some things that I look for. I look for tone, like what's their tone, what makes them special. And then I'll go look on YouTube, especially with COVID right now, to kind of see them performing. And then I look to see them interacting with other people. Like, okay, how do they come across? Do they just ooze that certain thing? You know, how you're in a crowd and one person walks in, you'd be like, okay, I don't know what they do, but they do something. So those are some of the elements.
I've been in life so many times. Sorry to interrupt, but I know that feeling so well. Like,
exactly. Yeah. Like so those are some of the things that I look for. I pride myself on finding something and looking around and seeing that nobody sees it but me. It's like, okay, so you really don't see that. And that's what makes developing talent so crucial, because some A&Rs are not versed in developing talent, and the talent development comes in when you find that product and you got to go in and shine it, and then later on they'll be like, now I see it. Oh, now everybody sees it. So those are some of the things that I really look for. And then also, there's nothing new under the sun, so I always try to figure out, who do they remind me of from another generation? As far as like an old school, because they always learn from someone, somewhere. So like for me, I think I might be crazy, but when I look at Beyonce, I see Tina Turner. I look at Usher, I kind of see a little bit of Michael. Like it's so many different things involved. So once all those things kind of line up, then I'm like, okay, here we go. Pray for no regrets. So that's what I look for.
And Melanie, did you have anything to add to that? I feel like there were some points that you were going to make.
No, yeah, I definitely, like when you said that, like walk to the room moment, like I had to like chime in just because it's such a real thing, like for better or for worse. Like my favorite example of this is years ago, I was at like some like event when I used to live in Nashville, and like Trinidad James walked into the room. And this is way before like the breakout song happened, and I was like, who is that person? And I remember also like years ago, I was at Fader Fort when it was big, and I remember seeing like Danny Brown like just walking around, you know? And it's like, it's not a coincidence that like I didn't see either one of those artists perform a concert that year at that event, but like that person, of all people that I saw that day, I remember that person. So then down the line, when they had their moment, if it was short or long, I was like, oh, I remember that guy. I remember just seeing him in the room. And I feel like that stuff is really important, because one of those things I always say to my artists is like, yeah, some of the artists like reach out to me first, or like I kind of like bait some context that will work. But I like to say that, you know, if you didn't reach out to me that day, or if I didn't say this thing that made you want to reach out to me, and the most artists that like I've reached out to is kind of a case of like, how would I have known you exist? If today and the year ends, how would I know you exist? Like if I'm talking to you, I'm like sending you a deal memo, like I am the definition of like your biggest fan, but like what are you doing intentionally for me to know you exist? Because like, yeah, if you DM me, maybe I was in a bad mood, I didn't look at my DM that day, you didn't approach me correctly, right? But like, besides those obvious things, what are you doing? Are you like, you know, I see Not 97 in the chat right now. Like where's your music on Not 97? You know what I mean? Like, did you pitch your, like, you know, that like radio show that I retweet every single Tuesday? Did you reach out to that radio show? Like, you know, like that blog, that writer from that blog I talk to like on Twitter all the time. Like, did you try to get written there? It's like, well, what are you doing that like before December 31st, I would have known you existed, and it's many things. And it's kind of like, I'm your target person and I'm your A&R, but like for every like fan that you're trying to meet internationally, you got to think that same way. Like, what am I doing? So like, I'm really into artists that like already know how to do that, or like have something unique about themselves that I can say like, well, yeah, you're a message driven rapper who's based in Oakland. Like, and then I'll like talk to them about figuring that out. And then like down the line, I'll see them performing at protests like Hernandez, you know? And then like, okay, so people who are in that world and motivated with that type of music, they're going to hear about you. So like just artists that like, without me telling them, they know how to like get in those spaces that, like besides like the Pigeon Plains, like those other spaces that might be like more niche. Like, are they like on Colors? Like, are they on the Colors blog? Not just the video that's going to get hundreds of thousands of views, you know? And artists that maybe they don't know how to do that, but as soon as I have that conversation with them once, they're like, oh my God, this idea happened, this idea happened, this idea happening. And I don't have to coach them. It's their world they're just developing and making expanding.
I think we're all in agreement, right, that artistry plays a huge part in signing any new act. I think that's really interesting, though, your point, Melanie. Would you say that the responsibility lies within the artist more nowadays in terms of, self-promotion? I think we found that, a really interesting kind of change in the dynamic as things are shifting online, and, any kid can make music in their bedroom to a really fucking high quality, right, that I think, subsequently it is falling on the artist to do more when they're starting out. And I think, in theory, there is definitely more of a responsibility there. And, potentially labels do expect more from artists now than they did maybe 10, 15 years ago in terms of self-promotion. Everybody can develop their own brand now via socials, right? I think we all, for us, we've definitely found that, we are looking at much more kind of different facets to that artist's sort of overall brand prior to signing. If ultimately it's down to the music, right? If the music's good and the artistry is there, we'll sign that act. But, I think I would just be really interested to know your guys' stance on, what falls onto the responsibility of the artist right now, as so much is online and so much can be done at home. Maybe we could start with David on that.
Yeah, thanks. So something that I'm seeing, and something that I'm definitely seeing, is established artists in some cases are a little confused as to what to do, because they're so used to also being on the go. They're so used to, okay, I'm gonna, I created this new song, gotta go to the studio, gotta go to shows. And then all this new talent, you mentioned all these kids making extremely high quality music out of their bedroom. All they know is that making music, releasing it, making music, being on TikTok, being on social media, and that's all they know how to do. So more established artists, all of a sudden their system and routine got disrupted. So what I'm seeing is some of these artists are beginning to kind of, some analytics, they have legacy content, but some analytics are beginning to slow down, while all this new talent coming out of nowhere, seemingly, is just skyrocketing because they know how to handle these tools way better. And when you know how to handle those tools better versus somebody that doesn't, you fly right through them. And that's something I'm seeing firsthand with our established artists, and also with all of our new repertoire of artists and all the content. That's definitely that. And it's really interesting to watch. So
for sure.
Yeah. That's all they do. Content, It's all they do all day long, create content.
Has anybody else got anything to add on that point? Briana, perhaps, with regards to social media and artists and them developing themselves?
I feel like a lot of the pressure, there shouldn't be any pressure for artists to promote their music. But the ones that have, the bigger personality, or like the more creative ones, are doing the most right now, and they are the ones that are putting out content every day. And yeah, I think a lot of my artists personally are figuring out how to promote themselves in like a very, I don't want to say just in their own way, and learning how to do it on their terms and like what level of being comfortable is.
Something I want to add, something that we've been encouraging our, especially our US artists. For example, Facebook, it's still extremely relevant in other parts of the world. For example, in Central America, South America, Facebook is free. So the telecom companies don't charge data. So Facebook streaming, a lot of people are using Facebook to stream music also. And I've seen this firsthand in my trips throughout LATAM. And that's something that I think US artists are beginning to not pay so much attention to, because it's, you know, so if any artist or artist management folks are watching this right now, I would encourage you to pay attention to Facebook in emerging markets, because it's still extremely relevant. And I just wanted to throw that up.
No, that's a really interesting point. And I think, you know, the diversity of how different, you know, all of these aspects are on a kind of country to country or territory to territory basis is, you know, pretty important. That leads me on to the next area I do want to discuss. Actually, we're running out of time a little bit. Just moving on from discovery to artist development, right? Everybody here has a, you know, very strong history in developing artists. I'd really love to know, you know, post-pandemic as well. Obviously, as I mentioned in our intro, the absence of live, particularly for me, has been a huge, you know, major marketing tool that's been taken away when we're developing new artists and building fan bases. I wondered whether on the, you know, fan base building and engagement tip, whether you guys, how you're adapting to that, if there are any elements that have come out that have proven to be successful alternative to, you know, building fans through live and what that looks like. Tima, should we start with you? Or Melanie, go, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the one conversation that we have to discuss today is like Bandcamp Day. It is tomorrow. Any musician that's in the chat now, if you don't have a Bandcamp, make it tonight. Like, it doesn't matter, you know. Like one of my artists, Namdi, I think he had a big tour and he was actually opening up on a amphitheater tour, a huge moment for him, and then it was canceled. And he really used Bandcamp really well and participated in to the Bandcamp days and like did like full projects for it. And I think that's like an untraditional way that it's all kind of pointing back to like the album that he released in April, Brat. But like at the same time, like he's kind of using these new platforms that like I think Bandcamp is like the platform of the pandemic. Like I feel like it's such a good conversation starter, especially for self-release artists or indie artists of any sort. So I definitely feel like that's like a new tool that I think has been really cool when it comes to like artist development, because it's one thing an artist can say, I'm a genre blurring artist, I can do this sound and I can do that sound and I can do that sound. It's very different when that artist can like, you know, several months in a row, they drop a project and one sounds like literally the Looney Tunes like composer, and the other one is like protest music about his experience as like a Black man and like what's going in the Black Lives Matter movement, like, and just having that range literally. And I feel like that's the type of artist development of like really showing it and doing that action. And I think like Bandcamp and the Bandcamp days, and especially when it comes to Black artists right now in this moment, and like acknowledging like this is a moment that people are acknowledging the extra work that Black people have been doing, and actually stepping up and trying to literally support and pay and listen to Black artists more than they have more than their entire life, honestly. I think the great artist development tool is like using different platforms and like maybe still doing extra work, but like, you know, releasing new music or marketing yourself different ways. Or like as an A&R, I literally reached out to some of those compilations of like Black artists to check out for Bandcamp Day. I literally reached out and said like, these are artists that I have secretly, as well as these are other artists that you should check out that are great too. And I think that's like another thing of just kind of like just using the different tools and thinking outside the box.
I think that's a really interesting point. And yeah, I personally have really enjoyed the kind of, you know, focus on more indie retailers in general that's happened during the pandemic. I think it's really interesting when you do take away something so large like live, where, you know, fans and artists get to interact directly on a very sort of intimate basis. Suddenly there is this focus on, you know, that direct connection and how, you know, how these artists have been affected during this. I think, you know, for some of our more left field artists, especially the ones in the kind of more club realm that rely so heavily on touring and live, you know, it's really nice to see people talking and standing up for these artists. Oh, sorry, my Siri has gone on for some reason. And, you know, I really think that it's fantastic that there is an awareness of this now, and this sort of almost return to supporting indie stores and retailers. And I hope that that's kind of a large part that kind of stays whenever this pandemic, you know, ends, if it ever does. So yeah, I think that's a really, really wonderful point. So I'm gonna stop in a couple of minutes, just we have a couple of questions from the chat. Just to finish up, just a little bit on DSPs. I mean, obviously this is something that, you know, has been a point of discussion for the last few years. I think I really just want to kind of take a look at, you know, your guys' thoughts on whether the DSP world has changed much going into the pandemic, how you are using that tool in terms of your artist development, and what it looks like in a post-pandemic world, if it's, you know, if the rise of Spotify is still, you know, as important as it was, if there are other elements that have come in terms of promoting your music digitally. So I'll leave this out to whoever wants to answer it.
I'll start just because I worked at a DSP. I feel like I had to. I feel like literally, like, you know, like, as I said, I've been in this role for a year. So a year ago, like, you know, as a playlist curator at a DSP, I think like the biggest difference that I see now is like when you don't have like as many major label artists like taking over everything, it shifts everything. You know what I mean? It's like, and even so, if like a Drake releases something, it's going to come out and then we'll talk about it for a couple of days and move on. I think just looking at like the playlist covers and the partnerships and all these things, it's really skewed more to more indie artists right now. And it's a greater conversation. I definitely see there's more opportunities for artists that honestly a year ago, they would have had to do more to get that same type of conversation. But if they did that a year like today, they dropped something this Thursday and not New Music Friday, as well as like just kind of going back to the conversation again about like, you know, how Blackout Tuesday and the impact of that, and like when Spotify did that motion of like making sure Black people take over for one day, like I feel like that was another moment of like that coupled with the pandemic. I saw a lot more independent and smaller artists supported on that playlist than I would have a year ago if everything might have happened since. And then just in terms of artist discovery too, I think it's a balance between, you know, looking at, you know, more than just the Spotify's and Apple Music, but then also like, you know, if you're really into West Africa, you know, look at Boomplay, you know, looking at, like also like looking at the different curators. Like I'm a big advocate of like I become friends with like a blogger and the next thing I know, like they're an official Spotify curator, you know, and just like looking outside the box of like the traditional editorial person at the company, but like also realizing there's a lot of like curators that your favorite blog might be a curator, or like what is Amazon Music doing? You know, what is YouTube Music doing? And I feel like it's a really cool time because I feel like a lot of new voices are getting their opportunity to shine if they're in the right mental space to still release music right now. And if they're not, it's completely understandable. If they just said, this year's a wash, I'm just gonna put my old music, that's totally okay. They shouldn't feel bad about that at all. But if they're more focused on like, let me use this weird moment in time, I feel like it's been beneficial from my perspective.
Would you say then that DSPs are taking more risks since the pandemic happened? David?
Well, I just want to say something to add on to Melanie. And I just want to give a shout out to all the music curators and all the platforms who actually are taking risks on new sounds, new music. And they take, of course, it's their job, but they take that time to listen and to look for that sound, and they also listen to us. So I just want to big a huge thank you to all of you out there. And yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Love that.
To also expound on that, I don't know if everyone has noticed this, but David said something early on that a lot of the bigger artists are having a harder time navigating this atmosphere that we're in right now. And I'm also noticing that from my relationships at the DSPs that they're probably working the hardest right now in the business because they're getting so much content, especially them kids who are independent, who know how to stay in their living room or their rooms and do nothing but work and churn out content. So I think, you know, from a DSP level, they're not suffering at all. I think the content is just like, it's a barrage. I have artists dropping records like, I want to drop every week. I've been holding on to this content for like a year now. I'm dropping it. I'm like, wow. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I want to expand on that as well. And you're absolutely right, you know. And then you have all these young artists that, and talking about the feeling, they're super passionate and hungry about it. So right now, this is the next wave, the next generation. They're so hungry, they're so passionate, and all they want to do out there is get out there in the world and do something, you know. And they have all these tools at their disposal, and to be quick. And then also something they do is they interact a lot with the audience. They do reactions on TikTok. They comment back on comments. So, and that's something that established artists usually don't do. Oh, you know, so yeah, you know,
it's personal engagement, right? It's, you know, the level of expectation I feel really has changed with that in terms of, as a fan, what you're consuming. If you don't feel close to that artist on a more intimate level, it's going to be more difficult for you to engage sort of as a longer term fan. I think we've certainly been encouraging our artists to, you know, connect in as meaningful a way as possible with their fans, and finding new and innovative ways to do that. Yes, Tima.
I was just gonna say, to add to that, just to encourage a lot of indie artists with the pandemic, just know that it's a reset button that's been hit. Everyone is trying to figure it out, you and the major artists, and everybody's on that starting line, ready to, on your mark, get set, go. So it's like, what are you doing right now for when that gun goes off and they say go? Because you are at the same line as everyone else right now. So I want a lot of indie artists to really think about that, you know, as they're getting ready, you know, putting out content, but also preparing content that's getting ready to be put out, because your best content should be coming up. And right when we get out this pandemic, it's time to go.
And also taking this time for them to create a team.
Yes.
Who you feel great with, who you vibe with, who you connect with, share the same vision. And right now, like for this new artist, because there's nothing to gain or nothing to lose, whoever joins your team right now is with you for you. Not for what's in it for them, but because they love you as a human being, you're talented, and they want to be a part of that bigger picture and future. So finding that team to work with right now, I think it's also an incredible time to do so.
And if I can add one more thing, especially for artists that maybe, like as a publisher, I'm not, all the artists I'm talking to aren't necessarily on a record label. They might have a distribution deal, but they might not be signed to a label. And I really want to encourage, like, don't put, and this is speaking as someone whose job was to make playlists. So like, this is why it matters. It's like, it's not just about getting on the playlist. Like, marketing is not just getting on the playlist. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if anyone can tell you that, please listen to me as I say that, because that's the thing. It's like, as I said, like, there's a blogger who might be curating a playlist that has value. Like, I know someone in the chat, someone mentions A2IM. It's a lot of like curators, you know, that like, I know record places like Genius who have their own playlists. It's like, if you really kind of like just think outside the box and like not just think, oh my God, I need someone from YouTube Music or Apple or Spotify to like give that, like figure out like, okay, where can I find curators that get me in general? Like anywhere in the world, you know what I mean? Like, I know a curator who literally like supports a lot of people from like the diaspora. And if you're East African and you live in Brooklyn, she'll put you on her East African musician playlist, you know, like, and it's kind of like, you just got to think outside the box. So like, I just please want to add that, like, playlists are amazing. We always love playlists, obviously, but at the same time, like, there's different types of playlists, you know, user generated, like other playlists matter too. And like, this all adds up. Like, if you get on like a one that a blogger made or a tastemaker or your friend makes and you build that up, Like that's, if you just keep on building that and amplify that, acknowledge every time you get like a high five, like the people who do the curation, they're going to notice you if you're amplifying your own voice and amplifying the support that other people are giving you. Like it's going to be inevitable, but just like look out for people who appreciate you. And then once that happens, make sure you amplify it every single time in creative ways.
I completely agree. And I think that can also go from playlisting and be transferred into just streaming in general. I think, you know, when we signed Odessa, who are one of kind of, you know, as Spotify was on the rise, they were a very, very big streaming artists, and they kind of grew from there. But I think it was really interesting because there are other artists we were looking at that, you know, the numbers were there, like they were getting playlisting, you know, perhaps like 2-3 tracks were blowing up, but when it came to live, they couldn't even fill, you know, the echo in Los Angeles. And I think that's super interesting that there can be this assumption in the industry that, you know, high numbers equals a meaningful fan base. And I think those two things definitely need to be separated. And, you know, really analysed if you're going to have, you know, more longevity with your artists and build more meaningful careers, particularly as an indie A&R, you know, it's something that I'm very passionate about. Thank you so much to everybody. I thought that the answers were absolutely fantastic, intelligent, thoughtful, mindful. Really, really appreciate your time. We've got time for 1 or 2 questions that I just really want to get through before we finish. So this one's for Briana, actually, from Kelly Lynn. Hello, I have a question for Briana. I'm a huge fan of B4 and have been following her work professionally for a while. I would love to hear more about her thinking process when she finds her artists who really straddle the lines between genre and potential to be commercially successful, whatever that means. And that is from Kelly. So take it away. Did I read that properly? I think so, yeah.
I guess so. When I'm looking at an artist for B4, what's really important to me is that the artist has a very clear vision for how the music is and how just all aspects of it. And when we take a meeting, that's what I'm looking to hear, instead of like, I'm basically just here to elevate everything that you want to happen. And like if you have a specific marketing campaign or like an idea for your music video, then great, I'm gonna find the team for you to make that happen. And it's hard because a lot of the times people, you know, you can be really good at recording your music and not know what the visual side is going to be, and or like have any sense of direction in how to present it to the rest of the world. That's a big thing for me, is just the vibe, and if the artist is has a strong,
awesome,
yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful, thank you. And then there's a question, a more general question. Anything you recommend us checking out for Bandcamp Day tomorrow? So here's the time to plug.
There's a B4 benefit compilation that's been up for a couple months now. It's 4 singles from the label, and we're donating all of the proceeds to we're just donating all of the proceeds. And it's
awesome.
Gonna be up for December, so.
Anybody else got anything for tomorrow that they want the guys in the chat to check out?
My artist Nambi's project Brat, I feel like you haven't heard anything in your entire life like it. And if so, please, I guarantee if you email me what it makes you think of, I will reply to every single one, every single email or DM. But yeah, check out Brat by Nambi, Namdi. Yeah.
Awesome. And okay, just to finish, we've got 2 minutes. I just want to go around and get a sentence from everybody in terms of advice for emerging artists or managers, new label representatives for new artists. Could you just give me one sentence or word of advice out there for new artists, please? So, David?
Some word of advice is do something today that you would be thankful 5 years from now you did.
Love that.
Mine for right now is that if you want to connect with anyone in the music industry, like now is the perfect time to email literally anyone, because we all have the time, and I love taking meetings with people that are seeking a mentorship or just advice in how to be in the music industry or how to even release music. And
I'm gonna second that as well.
yeah.
I would say have big dreams, but also believe in small victories. That's what I would say to the artist.
I would say figure out what makes you feel like you're the only person in the universe that does something, and then do everything in your power, like feel like a weirdo, but connect with every person that you think is going to appreciate it in a genuine way. So not in the sense of check out my music so you can sign me, check out my music just like from like this person might get what I'm trying to do, let me connect with them, and it's like a human to human level, and just any person that's going to probably get you, just reach out to those people in a genuine way. And if you are genuine, most likely they are going to respond. And when I say genuine, I wouldn't say, can I pick your brain? It's not, can I check out the music? It might take a couple of tries, but like figure out what makes you feel like the only person in the universe who does something, and connect people in a genuine way, and you'll see your life change dramatically. I met Bree almost a decade ago. As a fact. You know, like case in point, we're on this panel right now, like, and like that was me on Twitter. I didn't live in New York. I was like, I don't know, in Nashville or somewhere. You know what I mean? So like this is an example right here. Like we're on this panel together because like we were both doing that, and now look where we are. You know? Yeah.
Awesome. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to A2IM for having us all. Thank you, David. Thank you, Tima. Thank you, Briana. Thank you, Melanie. Really enjoyed this. I think it's been super insightful. So over to the A2IM guys.
Yeah, not happy to have to cut this one short. It's a phenomenal session. Thanks, everyone, for the contribution. Thank you, Maddy, for leading such a wonderful discussion. If you'd like to catch a recording of the webinar, I just plugged our YouTube in the channel. That'll be up shortly. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for attending, and you guys for all your contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.